What's up, guys? It's Tony with Thrill the Grill. Today we're going to replace the front pinion seal on my Jeep Wrangler. Now this method that I'm going to show you today works on pretty much any vehicle with a solid axle. Today we're going to do it on a Jeep TJ. So before you condemn that front pinion seal, that is just the seal that's leaking, make sure there is no up and down play on your yoke or in and out. So I don't have either one of those, because if you did, you have more issues than just your pinion seal. So luckily, we don't have any of those problems. It's just our front pinion seal leaking. The first thing you need to do before you even get started on this pinion seal is go ahead and take off your wheels and your brakes. Since I have wheel spacers on this, I do not need to take the rotors, but if you don't have wheel spacers on, you don't want the rotors just flopping around, so go ahead and take those off. I went ahead and unbolted my front drive shaft, but I have not removed it yet. Before you remove your drive shaft, make sure you put reference marks on your yoke and your drive shaft, so when you take your drive shaft out, you can put it back in exactly how you took it out. So I just took my paint marker and I put a little reference mark on the yoke and right here on the drive shaft. So now when I take this out and I go to put it back in, I know exactly where this needs to go. All right, once I pulled the front drive shaft out, a little trick that I do, I just take a little bit of electrical tape and I just wrap it around the U-joint caps so they don't fall off. And then I'm just gonna bungee cord this front drive shaft up out of the way. So you might be wondering why we took the wheels off and the brakes off. Well, I like to have 3 different methods to make sure I put this back exactly how I took it apart. This is pretty crucial, so you don't wanna mess up the torque on that bearings, because if they're under torqued or over torqued, you're gonna wear those things out really quick and then you can have problems. The first thing I do, I take off the brakes, the wheels and the brakes, because I'm going to check the rotating torque on this whole assembly here. Now, when you first set up your gears and you put your pinion in, you'll do the pinion preload without having the gear set and axles and all that in there. But even with all this in here, you'll still get a rotating torque, so that's what we're going to do. So here we're going to go ahead and rotate it, and it looks like we're about 19 inch-pounds. The second method I use to make sure we put this back exactly how we got it is I go ahead and count the threads on the pinion. Now for mine, there is only actually 1 thread showing for this pinion. And then the third thing I do is I go ahead and take out a paint marker. We'll go ahead and mark the pinion. And the nut, and the yoke. So when we put all this back, we want these paint marks to line up, we want to have 1 thread showing, and we want the rotating torque of it to be about 19 inch-pounds. Now we're ready to go ahead and remove this yoke. Before you even pull the seal out, make sure it's the right one. Now what I do is I go ahead and clean off the yoke just where the seal is going to ride. Make sure you don't put any brake cleaner on the paint marks that you have. You don't want to lose those. But just where the seal is going to ride, I go ahead and spray with a little brake clean, and we'll wipe all that off. Now what we're doing is just inspecting the yoke, making sure it's okay. There's no big grooves or anything like that in it. Okay, the yoke's all cleaned off. There's no grooves. There is a little bit of a shiny spot here, but nothing to be concerned of. But if you have grooves or anything like that, more likely you're going to want to go ahead and put a new yoke on there while you're at it. But I don't have any of that, so what I like to do is go ahead and take the seal and see if it fits over the yoke, which to me it does. So that's a good sign. Then, let's move it over here. Then make sure it lines up with the seal that's in the axle, which it looks like it does. So I've got burnt on this many times where I got the wrong seal and I tear it all apart, and then I can't get the seal till the next day. So before you even go yanking this seal out, see if it fits on your yoke, and then go ahead and match it up with the seal that's in your axle, which this one looks to be good, so we're gonna go ahead and yank this seal out. Now, there's a couple different methods to get the seal out. You can do a chisel and start bashing in the edges of this seal, or if you don't have a puller, like which I'm gonna use today, you can take a drywall screw and just run it through the seal, use a claw hammer, and pop that out. But if you do that, you gotta watch, you don't wanna go into the bearings or anything like that. I just like to use a seal puller. These are actually very cheap, so it's definitely worth having if you're gonna be doing repairs on your vehicle. So let's go ahead and pop this seal out. We got the seal out of there. Now it's time to go ahead and take some brake clean, spray it on the rag, and go ahead and clean up around there. You do not want to directly spray in there. You don't want to get a bunch of brake clean in the bearing and in your fluid inside the axle. So just spray a little brake clean on your rag, go around and clean up the mating surface for your front pinion seal. Okay, we have the axle all cleaned up. It's ready to go ahead and put the pinion seal back in. Now, before we go ahead and put the pinion seal back in, a long time ago when I started in the automotive industry, almost 15 plus years ago now, an old guy showed me a really cool trick for when you're installing these pinion seals. Pretty much all you need to do is get yourself an aerobic gasket maker. It's not the same as your normal RTV. I've used RTV before on seals like this, and it doesn't work. This works. I use this on inner axle seals and stuff like that also. This has never let me down. This aerobic gasket maker. I'll put a link to the gasket maker and any of the tools that I'm using in the description. If you guys are interested, they are Amazon links. If you guys are curious where to get this, I'll put a link in there. But what I do is go ahead and put a bead on here, and then I just kind of take my finger and wipe it around the seal. And then it is time to put the seal in the axle. So this stuff works wonders. And now I can go ahead and place the seal right there. I'm going to go ahead and get my ball peen hammer. Normally I do have a seal driver, and I lost it. I don't know where the heck it's at. So we're just going to go ahead and use a ball peen hammer and tap that seal back in. We're just going to go ahead and hold some light pressure with your hand on the seal, and on the opposite side, you're going to start tapping the seal in with the ball peen hammer. And I'm just going to go around and tap the edge of the seal. Making sure that that is all the way in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and take a rag and wipe off all that sealant that come out. Okay, so another trick I do, we have the pinion seal completely seated in there. It's ready to roll. Before I put the yoke in, I like to go ahead and spray the splines off on the yoke and wipe off the splines on the pinion. I should have wiped the pinion splines off before I put the seal in, but I can still get to them, so I'll go ahead and wipe those off. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and spray brake cleaner down inside your yoke there where the splines are, and I'm going to wipe it off. And then what I do is go ahead and put a little bit of RTV around these splines. Now that keeps any of the gear oil from seeping through the splines and out of the nut on the pinion, which I've seen it do that before, so that's why I definitely do this. So I'm going to go ahead and clean off these splines, clean up the splines on the pinion, put a little RTV in there, and get this yoke on there. Get the pinion all cleaned out. It really wasn't too bad, but we can go ahead and put a little RTV in there, just kind of work it around. Don't have to be perfect. I just take my finger and I'll wipe it around inside the yoke there. That's all. Nothing crazy. All that does is keep the gear oil from working its way down the pinion and leaking out towards the nut area. So now it's time to go ahead and put this back on here. So I got to line up this paint mark with the paint mark on your pinion. I got to put the pinion nut on there. Before I put it on, I go ahead and grab a little bit of blue Loctite and get some blue Loctite on the threads of your pinion nut. You don't have to go crazy with it. I just like to put a little bit on there. I do this even when I assemble a new gear set, anything. I always blue Loctite the pinion nut. Now we'll go ahead, thread this on there by hand. We'll go ahead and get the gun out and start snugging this up. Now you don't want to go too crazy because we're trying to watch and make sure we only have one thread showing, and make sure these paint marks line up on the yoke, the nut, and the pinion. And we want to make sure we don't go past that 19 to 20 inch-pounds of rotating torque also. So we're going to hit it with the gun, check it, hit it with the gun, check it, and so on and so forth until it gets down to where it needs to be. And there it is. We've got one thread showing. Now we're going to go ahead and double check it with the torque wrench. I'm going to hit it one more time. It's slightly below that 19 inch-pounds. And it's just about lined up where it needs to be. So I'm going to hit it one more time and recheck it. All right, we're at the 19 inch-pounds, so we're good. All the lines are lined up, and there's only one thread showing. So we're back to where we need to be. New pinion seal is in there, so we're good to go. Now all I got to do is go ahead and throw the drive shaft back on there, get the brakes on there, get the tires on there, and we're good to roll. But one thing, before you guys bolt that drive shaft up, make sure there is no up and down or back and forth movement in that pinion. You don't want it to have too much slop in there, because then that means you're not where you need to be when you are torquing this back down. So make sure, like I said, check your paint marks, make sure they line up, make sure you only have however many threads you counted showing, and then go ahead and for your final and third check, make sure the rotating torque is exactly where it was before you started taking it apart. So if you guys have any questions, I hope this video helped you guys out. If you have any questions, leave a comment. I'll get back to you. You guys have a good one.